Here we go. Okay, tip number one. So it is practice, 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 practice. I know this sounds like a duh, but you guys, this is so important. There's no possible way that in this time that we have, I will be able to cover all of the math things that you will see on your exam. So make sure you practice. If you feel like, I got so much going on right now, I got finals, I got all this senior stuff or whatever going on, I want to encourage you, download an app. Okay, here are some awesome apps. I just started scrolling through. What are some apps? This one, it's like, hey, just start practicing this definition. Here's this definition. Then another app's like, here, let me start memorizing a formula. One a day, and you're just slowly adding. Do what you can to start adding to your knowledge. The next thing here, work out as many problems as you possibly can. If you need to take time understanding what was wrong with that problem, reaching out, hey, I don't get this, right? And asking me. You are like an exterminator right now. You are going through finding every single little like cockroach and squashing it that you don't know about math, okay? You want to get every single type of problem out of the way. You'll notice as you start taking these tests and seeing these problems that there are a certain format of the test. There is trick answers they like to throw out there. And all of these things that you're thinking through are taking up seconds. And you need as many seconds as you possibly can because you only have like a minute on each question. So every second counts. You want to make sure you practice to save all of this time. Okay, but as you practice and you have an extended time of thinking through what was my mistake here, what formula didn't I understand, what word, and gaining that knowledge, you then at the end need to take a few times, at least once, in one sitting the test. So you want to make sure that you have the stamina to go the whole time through the test. It's one thing to sit and understand a problem and have 5 minutes and think it through and you're like, now I got it, compared to when you're on question number 47. Is going to be a lot different. And then you also want to practice your timing as you practice these tests. The timing is so crucial to practice. So here are a few steps on practicing. Tip number one, I kind of cheated, guys. So it is kind of like 5 sub-tips of tip 1, but that's okay. More fun. Okay, steps to timing your math section. When you get the giant math test, step 1 is take a quick peek at these questions. So say you get a test, right? And you're like, what? Here's my test. Okay, take a quick peek. Here, this page, this page, this page. I'm checking them out. And maybe it's just a section. Maybe I look at 1 or 2 pages in this area having to do with this. Generally, they are ordered from the least hard to harder in one section. So it should be already ordered in that, but you think through here what you want to answer the problems in. So you want to spend more time on the ones you don't know and less time quickly going through the ones you do know. You get those done and out of the way first. So you maybe mark a little thing next to it, or you know, as you are practicing, you come up with your own strategy of how you want to do it. But skip these time-consuming ones and get the easy ones out of the way in the beginning. This is huge. It's kind of like, okay, if you load a dishwasher, right? You're loading a dishwasher, and before you load the dishwasher, you think, I want to all do the silverware at the same time. I want to do the plates all at the same time. And you have this strategy, and because in the beginning you thought through, how am I doing this? You don't have that like crazy large pan at the end that you're like trying to fit in, right? Okay, so you have at the beginning this strategy. It ends up making it more efficient by just taking a little time at the beginning. This is only like 20 seconds, 30 seconds that you're doing this, but it will save you so much time in the long run. And answer the problems you know. And then last thing is spend about a minute per problem. Okay, so let's jump into a problem here. Okay, this is a problem. So you might look at this problem. It says the semicircle above has radius r inches, a chord CD is parallel to diameter of AB, blah, blah, blah. First thing, if you haven't seen this thing, you might be like, what are these words? What equation do I use? It might just be this crazy, overwhelming thing. So that's why tip number 1 is so important, is to practice. Because if you have already gone back and been like, oh, I know what a chord is, boom, that's not 10 seconds you spent thinking, oh, what was the chord? What's parallel? Those lines, or is this parallel? No, this is perpendicular. You're saving time from practicing. Okay. Here we go. Tip number 2 for you is underlining keywords. Underline the important words in your problem. So if you look at this problem, tell me, what is one word you think you would underline here? What is an important word? Someone shout it out.
Would it be the semicircle?
Semicircle. Okay, you have a semicircle. Anybody else? Anybody think, what would a keyword be here?
Radius.
Radius. Radius of r inches. Okay. Anybody else?
Parallel.
Parallel. So it's a little bit of a trick here, that the test will throw every math definition, possible vocabulary word at you at the same time. They will want you to be like, oh, parallel, oh, semicircle, oh, radius, math word, but some of these things have nothing to do with what it's actually being asked. Okay, I will show you. These are some of the ones that I would underline here. So what I want to do with underlining my math problem is I want to underline the words that help me understand what's going on and what are the key things to finding the right information to solve that. Sometimes I'm going to underline these other words because it helps me make sense. So what I underline could be totally different from what you underline, and that's totally fine. That is awesome. It's what you are going to go back. Instead of having to read this long paragraph, in my mind, all I see are these 4 words now. I go back and have to reword, and I'm like, r inches, okay, I have length, CD is 2/3, and I'm finding distance in terms of r. This is a lot easier for my brain to grab and do something with than this long paragraph. So for you, if it is parallel and that's something that you want to remember as your brain is coming up with a picture, underline those things. But it's basically you're quickly reading through that long thing, and then you're going back after and rereading quickly the underlined things so you understand what is being asked. And that's tip number 3. You want to know, understand what is being asked of me. What is the question? And just like we, at the whole part of the test, came up with a plan, in each individual question, we want some kind of a strategy, some kind of a plan of how I'm attacking this specific problem. Okay, and finding some kind of solution. So what would you think, what is the problem? What is being asked? What do they want to know?
The distance between the chord and the diameter.
Yep, distance between chord and diameter, that is it. Now, here is what I would start doing. I would start figuring out in my mind distance between chord and diameter, and you even can mark on the picture that they give you. This is what I'm looking for right here. This is the chord. I know it's the chord because when I was practicing this thing, I was like, what was a chord? I forgot that. And I go look it up on my phone, Google it up. Boom, chord. Oh yeah, it's this line that hits the circumference of the circle. Okay, I got this. So I didn't have to think about the definition of chord because I had practiced that, right? Now I want to know the distance between this chord and this diameter. I've also practiced, so I know what diameter is, right? Okay, so that's what it's asking us to solve. Tip number 4 here is memorize formulas. Okay, I know they give you this formula on the SAT. They don't on the ACT. You will have this, but you should know it. Again, you are taking up valuable seconds if you have to be like, what formula should I use here? Oh, let me go check what these formulas do. Because what this test is doing is saying, you should already know this formula. You should now show me you can apply this formula. So memorize as many formulas as you can. That will save you seconds, and it will have those formulas in your mind. This formula will absolutely be on the test. I can almost guarantee you somewhere they want you to do the Pythagorean theorem. Okay,
Excuse
they
me?
also, yes.
Do you know what tip number 3 was?
Tip number 3, yes, I do. It was, no, I don't. But it will come back up again. I forgot which number we're on. Anybody know?
We just left off of tip number 2.
Tip number 4 was memorize formulas.
Yeah.
Tip
And then
number 3 was, it's coming. Tip number 3, understand the question and decide a solution strategy. All of these tips will come up again. I'm going to run through quickly this problem, going through each of these tips, and then I will go slow down on a different problem so you can see the same tips through a different problem, and then I will have you try some. I will also email you after this class all of these tips written out. So if you're like, shoo, I'm trying to write these down quick, you are going too fast for me, no worries, I will send them out to you. Okay, so you will get this guy on the test. Pythagorean theorem, you should know a squared, b squared, c squared. Now they are not going to be like, okay, here's 4 for A, 3 for B, and 6 for C. Please put these into the equation. No, it doesn't work like that. This doesn't even look like Pythagorean theorem. There's no triangles, right? They want you to be able to know this formula and know how to even put this formula in and see how that applies. So this is why it is so important to memorize these formulas and think through the different ways that you could put them into a problem. So here they also want you to know about circles and all sorts of things about circles. Okay. So the Pythagorean theorem here looks like this is why, because they want you to see that you are working with a radius. Here's a radius, here's a radius, here's a radius, okay? So they want you to see that you can actually make this and apply a formula to something that doesn't look like it. Okay, so this is also tip number 5, label diagrams, angles, charts, and variables, or you want to make one. And again, I'm going through this quick because I want you to see more so the tips right now and understand different ways to apply them. And I have a lot I want to tell you because there's so much. Okay, so here, label the diagram. If you're given a chart, if you're given angles, label what you can to help yourself get a better picture. If you need to make something to get a better picture, make something. Okay, draw it out. So here I want to label, and you can see the labels that I chose was H, R, and R here. R they had given me. Okay, that's why I picked R there, but it also makes sense. R for radius, H for height, because many formulas for distance are going to be in terms of height. You want to choose labels that make sense. Makes sense. So when you get a problem and it's talking about ribbons, choose R for ribbons. Choose R for radius, choose B for boy, right? Use a letter, a variable that makes sense. So here in this problem, I'm labeling my diagram. So I know here the semicircle has a radius of R. Label, label. The length is 2/3. We'll label that in a second. And I want to know the distance between these two lines. So I want to give my length for AB, and it tells me it's the diameter. So since I'm solving in terms of R, I should write some R's on there. Does that make sense? Thumbs up or thumbs down? Good. We are going. Okay, so we have our thing labeled, and we need to find now this guy. Length of CD is 2/3 the length of AB. So AB is how long? 2.
2/3 more than length of CD.
Yes. And so if it is 2/3 more than AB, it is 2/3 1 2R. 2/3 of 2R. I'm gonna give you C. So do you see this? So CD, we want to find, we're just filling in our, what we know. And so here's my laser pointer. So CD is here. And here's R, R for AB. So I'm filling in still what I know. I'm quickly filling in my spots. So I know CD is 2/3 AB. And I'm going to write out this part because I have like a 2/3 here and these different numbers. I want to write out each thing. I don't want to do this part in my head because I don't want to skip or miss a number or mess something up here. So I wrote this out, and that's really important to do. Do you guys see why we have 2R here? There are two radiuses together that make a diameter. That is what they're checking to see that you knew something about circles, that you knew R is radius, and that you knew if I put those two together, that would give me 2 of them. They also want you to know that if I make any line from the outside of the circle to the middle of the circle, that's also R. Okay, so they are wanting you to plot this. And if you don't draw a picture, I just think it's really confusing. So here is what we end up getting. We just do the math there. 2/3, 2R, multiply the 2's. It's 4/3 R. I stick that guy up there. But you want to make sure you are answering the correct question. You might have to do multiple steps to get to the right answer. So as I'm doing all these different steps, make sure you don't stop at step 2 or step 1. Make sure you get all the way to the end and you've answered the correct problem. We didn't need to know what the length of CD was. We need to know the distance between CD and AB. That's what we're looking for. So we have plotted all of the terms that we knew, and so now we need to work it out, not in our head, on the paper so that we do not miss any piece. Okay, so we are now looking for the third part of our Pythagorean theorem. We are trying to figure out what that third side would be so that we can find the height. So CD we know is 4/3 R, and we knew that we want half of it now. So half times 4/3 R, we get 2/3 R, and we plot that in. But again, that also is not the answer to the question. We want to make sure we are answering the correct question. Like I said, they will give you questions. This is a little bit of a harder one with multiple steps. So make sure that you don't quit early on. We are finding this distance. Here we go. So this is our Pythagorean theorem. If we plot in each piece, we have h squared plus 2/3 r squared should give us r squared. This is a theorem you should know in and out and multiple ways to apply it. Always the long one is the c, so r here is the long one, so make sure you also know that part, and make sure you square each piece. So the 2/3 should also be squared to find h. We want to solve for h now. We subtract 2/3 r squared from both sides. And then we are left with this guy. So we multiplied the squared out. H squared now equals r squared minus 4/9 r squared. R squared has an invisible 1/1 on it. We can think of as 9/9. 9 minus the 4 gives us 5/9. So we're left with h squared equals 5/9 r squared. We take the radical of that. They cross out, and we're left with square root of 5 over square root of 9, square root r squared. There's some canceling there, and what do we have? What number or letter? What are we left with?
D.
D, yes. H equals the square root of 5, or the radical of 5/3 r. That is D. This is tip number 8 for you. What you want to do is you have a paper here, and you want to circle your problems maybe on that one paper, maybe even a couple of pages, maybe 5 to 10 problems. Then you want to go back after you've completed a few problems and bubble them in. Do not go back and forth bubbling in, okay? This will save you time by, maybe I had to skip this problem because it was really hard. And so I come back to it, but now all my bubble numbers are off. Oh no, right? You haven't bubbled in the correct one, or, even just it's more efficient to do it all at one time. You're not gonna accidentally bubble in the wrong number. So circle it nice and big on your paper, and at the end go back and circle about maybe 5 problems at a time, or a page on a time, however it ends up working out for you on your test, whatever as you practice you feel best in your flow. Okay, so let's look at another one. And again, I'm going to throw those same tips back at you. Number 1, we got going on right now. Let's practice, practice, practice. That was tip 1, and we are doing that. So hurrah, high five. You can high five me back. It's cool. Thank you. Thank you, Trent. Appreciate that. Okay, so here, can someone go ahead and read me that problem? Read me. Thank you, Edward.
A primate reserve, the mean age of all male primates is 15 years, and the mean age of all female primates is 19 years. Which of the following must be true about the mean age of M of the combined group of male and female primates at the primate reserve?
A lot of words in there, a lot of words. Thank you so much. First tip, remember, or second tip, is underline keywords. We don't want to have to think about all these things about primates. We don't care, okay? Actually, we might really care, but we can't care right now. We don't have time, okay? So underline some words. What would you underline or highlight here? What's the word? Tell me.
The mean age of all male primates is 15 years.
So you would underline this entire thing?
Yes.
Okay.
I would underline mean age M of the combined group of male and female primates, that whole thing, because that defines the variable.
Okay, very good. Very good. Okay, so here's kind of some things I would underline here. Remember, it's something that I want to, what works for me to think about what I'm given, what actually matters. I don't care that it's at a primate reserve. I don't care about, you know, all of these details about groups or whatever. I do care about what information is given to me and what information I'm trying to solve for. Okay, so I would highlight something for myself that would just, if I were to reread the problem, what would give me those key tidbits of information? Mean for the males, 15 years. See, and I already remember for myself that I know it's male, female, both. So I'm just thinking about the information. Mean 15, mean 19. What is true about M when it's combined? Boom. That's my key bits right there. Okay, so tip number 3, make sure I understand what is being asked of me. If you critically think through what is being asked of you, you will be benefited here. There's not a lot of calculation that has at all to do on this problem. Okay, so if I look at it, what is my question? What is my strategy here? What would you guys do? What's the question?
It's asking the mean age for the combined groups.
Yep. And do you understand what all that means? What is mean? What is mean? What is the mean?
I forgot what mean is, but
Good, very good. Thank you for being honest. Very good. So this is exactly why we need to practice, right? Mean, I guarantee you, is another one of those things that's going to be on the test. They will ask you things like mean, median, mode, range. Those are all crucial things to know, because not only will they want to know about mean, they will also throw the word mean out there to throw you off in another problem, and you won't have to ever find the mean. So make sure you understand these definitions, okay? Like I said, in those apps too, okay, there's one that's just like, all it does is go through, do you know mean? Yes, no. And then if you don't, it's like, you review that for a few days and then you check it off. Now I know, hooray. Download some apps. Okay, so here, yeah, you wanna know the combined group. A cool strategy to do here is to actually look at the answers. Look at the answers. This can even help you determine, how am I gonna go about solving this one, okay? You look at the answers and you're like, oh, so it's more of a comparison here. There's greater than, there's less than, I see equal to. I'm comparing some things. That will help me go about how am I going to solve for this thing. And again, we want to know the formulas. So here's mean, median, mode, range. These are not given on that lovely chart that they had, right, at the beginning of tests. So this is something you should know. Mean means to add all of the numbers and divide by how many numbers you were given. That gives you, another word for it is average. That gives you the average or mean. So make sure you get those guys down. Here we see it several times. What formula should I use? I'll probably need to know the mean. Okay, so I want to show you a few wrong ways, because like I said, I want you guys to know how to know their tricks, know some things that are going to be thrown out there, and ways they'll try to throw you off. So something that might be tempting is you see a lot of this number 17. Number 17, and this is how they get that. They go like this. If I take the mean of the males and I add the mean of the females and then I divide by 2, because that's something like you do in averages, then I'll get the mean of the combined groups. But is that true? Is that how we find mean? It does not. So mean is taking a whole group, dividing by that number. Then you have, say you have males over here, right? So it's like I have maybe 6 male apes, and I have 3 female apes, right? And it means that I have maybe some apes over here that are 20, 10, 11, 7, and I have some females over here, their ages are like, it could be anything, 74, 3, 2, you don't know. But then it's saying, what's the average? So that means what is the, if I were to add them all up, divide by that, the average over here is 15, the average over here is 19. So on average, that's what I get. Now, if I just take those two if I take those two numbers, right, and I say, oh, well, just those two numbers together divided by 2, then I get all of it is wrong, because we don't know if there's 3 over here and 6 over here. I don't know that together that is what's the average gonna be, because there's differing numbers. What I actually need to do is add all of these 3, the 74, 2, 3, 11, 5, whatever the ages were, and then divide by the total number of apes. That would give me the combined group. If I took their 2 averages, then that's like a combined average, not a combined of 2 groups. So here is when it's important, if you don't understand mean to that depth, you want to draw a picture. Draw a picture. Use tip number 5, which was make labels, diagrams, angles, and label things. Give yourself a picture. So you might even do something quick on your paper saying, okay, here's my males, here's my females. They don't have to tell me they're the same number in each group. No. I'm just quickly giving myself a mental picture. You might even plot in numbers like I just did. I said, oh, here's a mean age of males. Okay, let me get a couple numbers. Okay, and then I would divide by 6, and then, oh, mean age of females. Okay, they could be this, it could be giant ranges. And I'm just thinking through the problem. Now, this is going to take a lot of time on the test. I would not do this actually on the test, but as you're practicing and exterminating your cockroaches there, right? If you didn't know what mean is, that's one of your cockroaches. Exterminate it, totally know it in and out, get it down. And this will help you if you plot, and maybe you had time at the end, maybe you guessed on this one and you had time at the end of the test to go back and say, let me plot in a few numbers and see if I'm right, or see if this makes sense this way. So maybe this is something you even go back and do. Try it out. Okay, so the mean would be if I added all of the things, and then that would give me that M, a combined group then. And just so you know, these numbers, I really figured out in like 2 minutes, because I just thought if it's an average, they have to be close to this number. I wasn't like spending hours trying to come up with something that actually worked. So it's just think through like, oh, big number, small number, and then it was like 94, and I was like, oh, I need it to be higher. Just play with the numbers a little bit. Okay, so again, we want something that makes sense. Here they've already chosen something that makes sense for you, M, but I just wanted to show you something that maybe this isn't the problem. Maybe it is actually solving for a mean. You'd have words like male, female, age M. What labels would I use if I was just looking for something? I was trying to make my own equation. What's something you would use? What would something you use for female? What variable would you give it?
F.
F. Thank you. Would I use M for male?
E. No, because you're
No.
mean.
Because M is the mean. Yes, very good. Excellent. I might just quickly think, oh, male, boy. Okay, that makes total sense to me. Okay, so this is a great idea to not just do like X, Y. It can be very confusing. So if you have a problem that it wants you to actually make out an equation, use variables that make sense and helps you connect the information to whatever variable you're giving it. But this is not the problem. And we need to remember that we are solving the correct problem. Okay, so make sure you're going back and making sure you're solving that. So we want to solve what is true about the mean of these combined groups. What is true when I combine all those numbers? Who has an idea? What is true? Do I know? Does that have anything to do with 17?
It's going to be in between 15 and 19.
Why is it in between 15 and 19?
Because the mean of the combined groups, it has to be in between the two of them. And so we don't know like exactly where it's going to be, but it'll be somewhere in there.
Yes, we absolutely do. They threw 17 in there because they wanted to throw you off. It had nothing to do with anything else. So yes, you're exactly right. If you combine all of these ages of different apes, primates, then you know that, say it's on the high end, right? Say my highest number was 74, was my guess of like a female, really big. That can't possibly become higher now. I can't add in lower numbers from the males and then get a higher number. That doesn't make sense. I also, if I have a low number, like 3 or something was one of mine, and then I add in a higher group, it can't possibly go lower, right? My average can't go lower. So it has to be somewhere in between. It also can't be equal, same reason, because I'm adding in higher or lower numbers to make a new average. So this is just making sure you understand what is average, what is mean, what does that mean? Okay, it's just testing your knowledge and can you apply that knowledge? So you really have to practice knowing what these definitions are. What is it it's talking about? Because you can't apply it at all if you don't even know the definition. So work on your definitions. Okay. And then tip 8 was to circle the problem. So we want to just circle that problem once we thought through that a little bit. Maybe we did a little chicken scratch and solved it and thought through it in a picture, or maybe we just could easily, quickly see it and know it. But this is what you have. So you guys have already done 2 problems. If you got these same problems or something quite similar on the test, you would have these down, okay? So as you've worked through and sat and thought through something like this, you're gonna get another one. This comes straight from the test, right? You're gonna get something similar or applying this same formula in a different way. You're gonna know these ones because you've memorized them. So you need to do that with all the different ones. So get to work. No, you want to keep practicing. So here is another one. We will, tip number 1, practice, practice, practice. Angles. Okay, you will definitely see angles on your test. Here it's testing your knowledge of, do you know about angles? Do you know about these symbols? What are the 2 lines? What are the lines like this? What if it has a triangle here, does that mean? What does the word similar mean? Who can throw out one piece of knowledge that you already know?
If these are similar triangles, then all of their angles would also be equal.
Amazing, thank you. Anybody else? Who knows what those 2 lines up and down mean?
The 2 lines up and down mean that they're parallel.
And what about these guys?
Perpendicular.
Perpendicular, excellent work. So it's testing that you know that and that you can apply that. But if you're not sure, you can underline. This is a short guy. What would you underline?
Similar?
Similar. Yeah, that's a key piece of information. What else? Anything else?
True?
True, excellent. Those are the exact 2 things that I underlined. Similar and true. That helps me quickly think about what I'm solving. What am I looking for? I want to understand the question, and then I can easily decide the strategy of solving. Remember, a great piece of strategy is to look at your answers, okay? I could think, man, there's so much stuff I might know because I know they're similar, but if I look at these answers, it's gonna help me understand exactly what piece of knowledge I'm looking for. What is my answer going to look like? Okay, so you want to know these formulas. Okay, the reason why Trent knew about these things is because he knew about similar triangles and they have similar angles. Here is a picture here of some great ways you can draw using these dashed lines for things that mean the same. You can see here that we needed to know what are perpendicular lines, what are parallel lines, and you can see how it means this and this guy here are the same, this guy and this guy are the same when these lines intersect and they're parallel. You also can see down here that you're given on the test the sum of the measures of an angle is going to be 180. That could also be applied. On these problems, there's many different ways you can go about solving something. There's usually a quicker way to solve it though. So there are, by all of that knowledge you just had, there's several ways you can think about it. But as you practice, you'll figure out which one is the fastest way to go about it. So make sure you label, okay? If you knew that there are equal, it's great to label here, but note this note here. They will draw the pictures so they're not to scale. It kind of looks like it's slanting a little bit. And sometimes they draw it where the triangles look bigger or smaller than they actually are, right? So they're saying rely on what you know about your mathematical properties and not what you're looking at the picture. So be careful of that trick. That is a good trick. That would throw me off because I'm a total visual learner. So make sure that you are watching out for that. Use those things that make sense with angles, those lines, like I said, that makes sense. So this helps me to draw a little picture saying, oh, this angle means the same, this angle means the same, and I'm not sure because these guys, you know, are going like this. So I'm reminding myself by just drawing in some things there. Okay, and I then think, oh, well, each of these along the line have to equal 180. So I know angle A, angle E, those guys are the same. I know in my mind, oh yes, these guys are the same angle, and I'm just getting a good picture. Well, if this is 180 and this is 180, that means they'll never go like this, right? So they never will intersect, which means they are
Parallel.
parallel. Thank you very much. I really love and enjoy the participation. Thank you, I really do. Great job. Yes. So what answers do we know are incorrect? If we know they're parallel, that means
The ones that are perpendicular are incorrect.
excellent work. Thank you very much. Yes, we know that that means that these guys, B and D, are not correct. They are not perpendicular. What about A? What is happening with A? AE, perpendicular, parallel to BD.
That's not true.
Deidre, go ahead.
They intersect, so they can't be parallel.
Yes, all it's doing there is testing your knowledge of, do you know what this means and this means? Yes, they intersect. That is called perpendicular, not parallel. So wrong. Very good. That leaves us with C, but make sure you're answering the correct problem. Make sure you're like, okay, wow, that seemed kind of easy. I'm not sure. Was that right? Yes. Yes, I am circling this because this is true that this and this. Very good. We want to circle the problem. At the end, we will go back and bubble. So I've circled this problem. I have solved the right one. And another thing too is if you have memorized, this is actually a property in math, a theorem that says this is true, that always, if you have two similar triangles, it's always parallel. So I didn't even need to do math on this one. If I had spent time memorizing, I would have saved so much time. So memorize and practice, practice. Okay, here is another guy for you. Okay, I'm gonna give you more reins here, so please be involved. You can, even to yourself, be telling what the answer is. You don't have to unmute, just tell yourself, what would you underline here? Everybody come up with an idea. What would you underline? Think through it. You can, if you have a piece of paper, you can even write this stuff down and be involved so that you are gaining knowledge right now and not letting the other classmates steal all of your thunder. What would you underline? Give me one.
The y equals 0.863x plus 27.
Absolutely. Yes, you don't have to read the whole thing. Very good. Yes, that is a key, huge piece of information. Very good. What else? Any other key information or things that I want to know as I'm thinking through this picture in my mind? I don't want to reread this whole giant paragraph again. It takes too long.
Numbers of years since 2004 and x is less than 10 or equal to 10.
Yes, excellent job. Very good. And then you always want to underline something that is giving you an idea of what am I trying to find? What is my answer, right? So here I underline the mean number of students. Y, that tells me a variable and what that variable is standing for. It is this long equation here, and then X means this number of years, and it's less than or equal to 10, and I'm trying to find this guy. This is way simpler for my brain to digest when I have underlined these keywords than if I have to keep reading over and over and over and have to hear about Central High School and all these different things over and over. Okay, so underline keywords, figure out what works best for you as far as underlining in things. Then you think, what is the formula? What do I need to know? What's my problem? What's my solution, right? That's our next key step. So what am I looking for here? The best interpretation of what this guy means in there. What formula is it thinking I should draw on? Who knows what formula is like, hello, do you know this formula? This is a huge formula. This also, I guarantee you, will be on the test somewhere.
The y equals mx plus b.
You are amazing. You are doing your homework. Thank you. Yes, y equals mx plus b. This will absolutely be on the test. You should know the ins and outs of this. You should be practicing all sorts of problems with y equals mx plus b. Yes, in this case, it's not going to get too detailed. This is another one of those problems that should hopefully be a quicker one for you. If you have seen the slope equation and you can, boom, see right here, wait a second, this looks like an equation I know, and it should be a flashing red light. Okay, look for that guy. But if you don't know, here is where the time is to exterminate that cockroach, right? It is to say, hey, I don't know what this guy is. I don't know what this is. I don't know how to solve for these pieces. I don't know what each piece means. And so you start doing research and you start looking up, okay, what are other problems with slope? And what are some other bits of what they mean? Here is a graph. And so I look up and I'm like, oh, okay, M is the slope. In this, what a slope is the rise and the run, right? It's how it goes up or down. I know that when I plot in a number x and y in the equation, it should give me a point on this line. And I know the B part means a y-intercept. So right here is your y, and anytime it's going to hit that gives me that y, gives me that B in the formula. Okay, so here is kind of just a picture. If you need a picture to help yourself think through the problem, here's a picture. I wouldn't spend time drawing it on the test, but at least for practicing time and to help you start thinking through some of these problems, you might draw yourself a picture, or if you're just totally stuck on the test, draw a picture. Okay, so here, I drew it. I see, well, when it's 0, right, because x would cancel out on that y, or the x times 0.8, blah, 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 right? When it's 0, it should hit 27.227, and I see here's at 10 years going by because it went number of years, it told me. Here's the mean number of students, and that is this way. So this helps me think of a picture of what it's going on here. So maybe a strategy that you have here is to go through the answers to say, is it this one? Is it that one? Is it this one? Why is it or isn't it that one? This could be a strategy. Just go straight to the answers. I just want to know the best interpretation. Okay, so I look at A. What do you guys think about A? It's the estimated mean number of students in 2004. Yes or no? No, very good, excellent. Yes, this is incorrect. Thank you for all my thumbs downers. Incorrect A, the y-intercept represents the mean number. It says, so yeah, not A. Very good. Okay, and then B, yes or no? Lots of thumbs down. Very good. Excellent job. So here you could be thrown off. They're trying to throw in pieces of information. They gave us X is less than or equal to 10. And you're like, oh, 2004. Now it says 2014. Yes, I found the answer. All they did to throw that information is in so that you would be thrown off and be tricked to pick this number and not actually solve for the correct problem. So make sure you're solving for the correct problem, okay? Make sure you understand what they're looking for and you're solving the right thing. You're not just like, oh yeah, it says something about X in less than 10. Yeah, okay, 2014. No, think through it, okay? Very good, and you guys did, excellent. So what about C? C, we see lots of thumbs down too. This is very close to D. It's very close. What is the difference?
There's decrease.
Yes, very good. So there's one word difference between C and D. And how do we know if a slope here, because that's what we're looking at, right? The increase and decrease. How do we know it is a decrease or an increase?
If it's a negative.
Negative, excellent job. So if in your formula that M part, that slope is negative, it will run this way on the graph. Hopefully that's the right way for you. It will run this way. Here, I'll draw it so that you know for sure. Okay, so it will run this way if it's negative, and it will run the other way if it's positive, right? Can you see that? Okay, so yeah, it is going to increase. Now, the thing that would have thrown some people off, though, the trick that they were trying to use is maybe you even knew that it wasn't negative, but you saw a decimal. And so you thought, oh, a decimal makes things smaller. And so if you thought that, you can always try numbers, like plotting in numbers. So if you would think, okay, at year 1, if it's X, 1 student, then what would I get? If I have 2 for X, 2 years, then would it be bigger or less? 3 years, and you can see if I'm plugging in numbers, it actually does increase. Even though it's a decimal number, it is still a positive slope. But it was quicker, yes, to think this is a positive slope, so it is increasing. So is it D? Yes, it is D. Excellent job. I circled it because I needed to not bubble in yet, right? Tip number 8. Now, you may be thinking, teacher, you said that we get 10 tips. You're totally jipping me. I've only heard 8. You are correct. Tip number 9. Here we go. This is not mind-blowing, but it is extremely important. Okay. Tip number 9 is all about your calculator. You should, as part of your strategy, when you're given a problem, decide if it's better to use or not to use a calculator. The calculator that you are recommended to use is the TI-8384, and you need to practice with this guy while you're doing your practicing. So you want to make sure you know all the basic functions and graphing on your calculator. So you should be, using that and saying, okay, what do I do when it's an exponent? It's like a little caret guy, or, practicing with some of them, it's like you need parentheses and then brackets around that and then divide this thing. Some of it is you need to be able to know how to graph something on it. So make sure as part of your practice, you are practicing with your calculator. Bust out that manual of it and test out how to plot in some of these guys. Also to note that you don't always need a calculator. Sometimes it'll say, yeah, you could totally use your calculator, but you don't want to. You don't want to spend valuable time using it. There's some angles, like that angle problem we did, we absolutely did not need to graph anything, right? On that last one we just did with the slope, also, I didn't really need to graph that. I just wanted to give you guys a visual so you can start thinking through some of the visual things that's going on here. I didn't have to. Maybe that worked best for you to do that, but maybe it would be best if I just drew it on a quick piece of paper, be like, what's that look like? Oh, this looks like this real quick, right? I don't have to spend all this time graphing. Some of these long division problems, it would be easier to, again, look at the answer and say, I only have 4 answers. I'm going to plot all these 4 in, see if it works. Boom. I didn't have to bust out the whole polynomial and figure out all these exponents and blah, blah, blah. I didn't need to punch all these details into my calculator. Okay, and I save time doing that. So sometimes it's like a trick even that they are thinking, oh, they're gonna try to do it on their calculator, and it doesn't actually save you time. So make sure as you're practicing with or without your calculator. Sometimes the expectation is that you are totally using a calculator, right? So here's when you gotta be like, okay, what is working best for me as I practice? Is it best here to use my calculator? So maybe, you know, determining roots of like complicated quadratic equations, and you're like, this is going to take so long to do, and my calculator can just okay, also graphing complicated y equals mx plus b. Or, you know, if I'm doing equations, it's like 1.37625 to the 4th power. That is going to take me really long time by hand, and on a calculator, it's going to be like that. Also to check your work, like maybe it was quick for you to, you know, find a volume or something, solve for an area or something, and you did it, but you had time at the end and you're like, man, I want to make sure I got that right. Maybe on that first example that we did, that would have been a great one where you maybe guessed. You want to go back in and just guess some numbers for primates' ages and the mean of their ages and see, did this make actual sense? And use your calculator to find some of those answers so you're not spending all this time on this math. Okay, and be careful to answer it or put the problems in correctly with the right units. So some of these will try to trick you by saying, okay, I've given you the answer, the question in this unit, but I want the solution in this other unit. I've given it to you in inches, but I want it in feet. You have radicals or degrees, right? So you have all these different things. Make sure you plot it in, and your calculator is even set to the correct thing that you need for that equation. So that is another one, a big tip. Tip number 10, woohoo, we made it to 10. Okay, you guys, I know this is the time to like die hard, go hardcore, like study as much as you can, practice like a bajillion tests that you can. I would be like, I need every app, I need like all these tests, I'm downloading this right now, right? But the night before the test, you cannot possibly function if you were like, well, I got this the night before the test, I will just go ahead and practice like 4 exams. Like, no, you can't. Like, your body can't function if you don't have enough sleep and you don't have enough fuel. You have to make sure before your test, get enough sleep, get enough food, get enough water so that your brain can handle all of these amazing math problems. Okay, we are going to do some more practice. I'm going to give you a short amount of time to do a real problem. Now, I know right now you can't underline, but you might just think in your mind, what would I underline? Or you might write on your paper what you would be the key information. Just quickly jot down some of those keywords or phrases and think through this guy. This will be a similar one to something we've done. So is everybody ready? You want to have a piece of paper and a writing utensil right now? This is good. Here we go. Are we ready? I'll give you 10 seconds. Dial that brain in. Here we go and go. Test problem number 1. Yeah, so when you are done, if you're done, quick, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. Very good. Alrighty, so this actually is one of those ones that's just a lot of words and it wants you to pull out a keyword there. It is saying, hey, do you know this keyword and do you know what it means? I'm also gonna throw at you some random other math vocabulary to totally throw you off. Who knows what is the math vocabulary they threw in to totally throw you off? What is the trick?
Margin of error.
The margin of error. So is this the thing we want to know? Is this the problem we're solving, or is this a random piece of information? The mean is actually the trick here. This is actually the trick, is the mean. I threw that at you because we did a mean problem. Was that mean of me? Ah! I love using mean as many different puns. I'm sorry. Okay, mean is not the thing we needed to find. Margin of error is actually the thing we needed to find. So here I might go through and underline again. What is the first thing I might underline? What is something? Give me one guy.
Margin of error equals or was 4.28 minutes.
The margin of error was this guy. The sample, so I have another number here. The sample is here. We know there's 75 students. Here are bits of information that are important. It doesn't matter. There's a research assistant, undergraduate students. It's part of a psychology degree of a large university. How many minutes a day do you typically start reading? Another research assistant intends to replicate the survey. All these are just extra words that you just want to be like, what is going on in this story? Eliminate all these extra words and just get the bits of key information. I have 75 students. The mean time is 89 minutes. The margin of error is 4.28 minutes. I want a smaller margin of error. What will give me a smaller margin of error for the estimated mean time? So it's drawing on your knowledge. It's trying to throw you off by saying mean in there. They're being super mean. And they want you to know, do you know what is margin of error? There's all these different percentage problems that are on the test, and margin of error and rate, things like that. So search about that. If you didn't know what margin of error, that's okay. If you didn't know what that meant, look it up. This is your time as you're practicing these questions. Like I said, I can't possibly go over every single thing that's going to be on there. You have to do your due diligence and be practicing these things outside of class. You have to figure out the vocabulary words and what do they mean if you don't remember. If they're way back when, many years ago in some other geometry class or algebra class, or just it was last week and it's gone. Okay, so make sure that you grab onto these vocabulary words and then start memorizing them. Like I said, that app is so helpful because it's every day just one thing. It's little flashcards you can just go through. I know this one now. I don't know this one. Keep practicing. Margin of error. Margin of error. So if you take a large group of something, then you have some kind of error out of that group that you took. That margin of error gets smaller as your group gets larger. Okay, that's all it's wanting to see if you know. That's it. So what is the answer?
Would it be A?
So what would give me a smaller margin of error? To take 40 random instead of 75. So think about an error. So think about this if you need to draw a picture or have a mental, make your own story. right? So to understand what is being asked. So think about margin of error. So think about if I want to know who likes candy, right? And I ask my children, I have 5 of them. I say, who likes candy? All 5 of them like candy, right? There's a margin of error because this guy over here is like, you know what? I thought you were really talking about this specific candy. You tried to give me some like adult candy. No, actually, I didn't really like that. There was some kind of error in there. But if I ask 700 children, do you like candy? Right? I'm going to have a larger group. And of those ones, I'll have a smaller amount of error, right? So that's what it's want to know. If I have a bigger group, I'm asking more people, there's less likely. If you think about, they might throw in something like a scientist does a test and these people contracted a disease in this thing, or this thing solved this problem to this disease, this vaccine solved this thing. There's a percentage of error in there, right? But margin of error gets smaller as your people grow. So it wouldn't be 40 because that gets smaller than 75. Not A, not B. Which one do you think, C or D?
Then it would be C, right?
Excellent. Yes, it would be C. Very good. Why is it C instead of D?
Because it's 300 students, so
It's larger.
the margin error would be smaller than.
Excellent. Yes. And we chose C over D because here it's saying from the psychology degree, and this is from all degree programs, we want to keep, when we're taking a sample of something, the variables as the same as possible. So here, that's what happened in that original sample was from the psychology degree program. So if I open it up to all programs, I've entered in more margin of error, not gotten less margin of error. So this is asking me, do I know about margin of error? Am I thrown off by them throwing in the word mean and things in there? Okay, here is another problem. I'll give you a few minutes to solve. If line L is translated up 5 units and right 7 units, what is the slope of the new line? Who's got this guy now? Go ahead and throw a thumbs up when you got this one. Excellent. I'm starting to see some thumbs. Very good. Yay. Excellent work. So here again, it's drawing on that use of the slope. Do you know what slope is? It's rise over run. The rise this way. And then of course you can only run this direction. You can't run up. So rise over run is slope. And like we already said, this way is negative, this way positive. So is this one negative or positive?
Negative.
Negative. Excellent. So we've already eliminated A. This cannot be the answer. Very good. And let's make sure we're answering the correct question. So what would you underline, or what is my question? What are some tips you would throw at this problem?
Well, you're trying to find the slope of the new line.
Would it be the same or would it be different?
It would be different.
It would be different than this L?
Oh, no, it would be the same.
Okay, there we go. Yes, so it's just translated. It's going, I'm moving this way, but the slope, would that be the same as this line here? Yes, it would be the same. Very good. So we move it, and then we just need to know how to find the slope. So what is the answer? What is the rise over run?
Would it be B?
It would be B. Yes, excellent work. So it's drawing on your knowledge. Do you know what rise over run is? And remember, so rise is like I go 1, 2, 3. Ah, sorry, went too far, but pretend I didn't. And then we went 1, 2 over. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. That is 3 up, 2 over. Negative, because it's a negative slope. So yes, it's B, and I just want to circle it there and eventually go back after a few problems that I've solved and make sure I'm bubbling in that correct number. Okay, one more for you guys to practice here. What about this guy?
Does that say what is y in terms of a?
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Thumbs it up when you're ready to go. All right. I got a couple ones you can keep working if you are still going. What, oops, I gave you the answer. What's the answer?
A.
A, correct. How did you know? Yes, very good. Here is how we would work this guy out. Okay, so we know we are solving for y in terms of A. So we want to get y in terms of A, moving that guy around. So we multiply here the cross multiple A minus 1 on both sides. Can you guys see this whole thing, or is you guys your video like in the way? Can you see the whole? Yeah, okay, good. Because on my screen your video cuts. Okay, cool. So you multiply A minus 1 on both sides, multiply y on both sides, and then come down, divide by 2. You want to get y all by itself. So this one is just making sure you're solving for the right one. So it was a really great question to make sure you had y in terms of A. You understood the question here, and you're showing work. That is another key bit here of what we're doing. We want to make sure we show work and we're not just doing all this in our head. Very good. Homework today, I really encourage you to download an app. I'm going to email you guys a practice test. If you're not sure of what to look for, I'm going to send you 2. I'm going to send you an ACT math test, and I'm going to send you an SAT math test. It's an entire SAT, so just scroll on down. I think it's like page 36 or something like that. It starts the one with no calculator. It'll look kind of like this guy, no calculator, and then you'll have another one that's like this guy, and it'll say you can use a calculator. So there's 2 math tests for the SAT. I would really encourage you to practice these ones. Email me what ones you really are stumped on, or if you're like, you know, I really want to know more about this or this exact problem. Maybe you even find your own problems and you're like, I don't know how to do this guy. Help me with this kind of a problem, or what other formulas would be great to do. I'm going to send you also a whole list of a page of formulas that I think would be really excellent to know, memorize before you get into the exam. And I hope by our next class, you guys have dialed in some of these things, these tips, have seen to work it out on your own. How does it play out when I'm doing it in my mind? Because math is so awesome that like you're analytically thinking, but I can analytically think about something totally different than one of you guys could. And sometimes it blows my mind. I'm like, how did you get that thing? Oh my goodness, you know, but you just can think about it quicker or in a different way. And so think through this stuff. Okay, practice, practice, practice. That is my main tip for the day. Main tip. Practice, and email me back. Totally email me whatever ones, and I will have for the next class any of these problems you want to do. We can work on those, guys. We'll keep practicing. I have more strategies, more tips for you that have to for the test that will help you out. Get you points. More practice means more points. So practice. Thank you guys so much.